When exposing students to science, the big concept that students need to be proficient at is the skill, the art of measurement. This here is pretty incredible because measurement can take you to a whole new level. You're not only able to present your results, but also being able to analyze results properly and making people that are reading your data to feel confident in your information that you are trying to prove to the general audience. And so there are four things that we're going to cover with regards to measurements in science. First is we're going to look at the comparison between precision and accuracy, and this here is going to be followed by what does it mean or consequences of observation bias, and this is going to be followed by a concept known as recording variables to consider. And finally, here is how does this come together to present the science contributions in our findings. And so first is we're going to look at is the precision versus accuracy. And a lot of information that are out there use the bullseye analogy, which is pretty decent to use, and I'm just going to describe that pretty much in terms of the range of precision to that of accuracy comparison. And so first is we have this first scenario or outcome where you have less accurate but you have more precision. And what does this mean? Let's say you have a bullseye board and you have all your four results to be not at the center but somewhere outside, but they're all together. And so this here implication is when you have an instrument that is broken in your situation, in your experiment. And so that is how this is portrayed. Now, the next outcome here is when you have less precision but you have more accurate results. So this here means that you have all your four results to be around, spread out around the board but not at the center. And so this here just means that you have improper use of your instrument. So let's say for example you have a thermometer that is not placed in the right position on your first result, but then you change it to a different test run or trial, and then your third trial you have your thermometer placed at the tip only and not immersed fully. So all those inconsistencies in the use of your instrument will lead to your less precision but more accurate results. And the final one here is where you have accurate and precise results. So this here means that you have all your four results to be concentrated at the center, pretty much essentially bullseye, your hidden nail on the head. And this here just means that you have exact and correct results. And this here can be applicable when you use a proper instrument, your instrument is functioning properly, and you are actually setting your conditions in a way that is pretty much constant while you're changing things that are of focus during your experiment. So pretty much essentially you're preventing external factors from influencing your result. Now, what does it mean when you have external factors influencing your result? This here comes into the next point, which is known as observation bias. And essentially what this means is that you have various practices that you do in the lab that prevents you from getting the best result possible, and these influences are influenced by you as the experimenter essentially. And so this here can influence your accuracy and the precision of your measurement, and even when the instrument is functioning properly, you as an individual influence it. And this here is pretty much inconsistent, and an example can just be a delay in how you record your timing. Let's say for example your recorded time at which you have your speed of a car that you're trying to record, and then when the car moves your delay of start to end, that is an observation bias because you're not considering your influence in terms of your reflexes to where you start or end. So people are now trying to use lasers to actually improve that quality, accuracy, and precision. And so there are many more ways by which you can actually try to overcome that by not having human influences into results, but rather you're using other technology to make that a possibility. Another one might be, for example, I play tennis a lot, and back then we used to have a lot of lines people on sides of the court and trying to make calls like in or out. And back then we used to have a lot of like challenges where if a player feels that I think it's in and the line person says that it is out, then they use the hawk eye to check whether it's in or out. But then now we're having technologies that doesn't allow for the use of lines people, and therefore you have no challenges where you have high dependence on technology to determine whether a ball is in or out. There are other conditions that lets you to know that this is still an ongoing technology. Like for example, this technology is influenced by people moving around the court. So if you have more people moving around the court, then it gives wrong calls while in play and all that stuff. So it's kind of fascinating to see how this technology is trying to overcome observation bias, but at the same time there are limitations to it that can be improved as years and technology progresses. Now, next one is recording variables. Variables are three in number, three types. Variables means what are the things that you're measuring, to what are the things that you are observing as a result of the changes, and what are the things that you're trying to keep constant that doesn't influence those two things that you're comparing. And this here is done during experiments. So you have to choose the two, I'll say, variables that you want to focus on in order for you to get the best outcomes and analysis out there. One type of variable is known as the independent variable. This means here that you're looking at the quality that is changing during the experiment. This is also known as input for mathematics purposes. It's like the x variable on your x-axis, of course, and pretty much essentially, for instance, when you're dissolving sugar in hot versus cold water, the variable that is going to be measured is the temperature changes in that particular scenario. The other one here is dependent variable, where you have the outcomes of what is changing made, and this here is known as the output. So whatever you put in, you see what the outcome is. Essentially, it is the y-axis that you're trying to record. And this here pretty much, for example, is when you're recording time that it takes for sugar to dissolve in hot versus cold water. And this here is the dependent variable in terms of what the time. So you're recording time, recording your x-axis to be the temperature change, and then the time is the y-axis in that case. And the final one here is controlled variable. These are quantities that stay constant and they do not change during the experiment. Let's say, for example, you're trying to keep pressure constant, you're trying to keep the volume of the water constant, the amount of sugar added is also constant, the type of beaker that you're using to make that recording possible, all those are constant. You're not changing the type of material that is used to make that beaker. Now the final one here is known as science contributions, and this here needs to be considered when you're performing an investigation and you're trying to present or publish your scientific articles. Now this requires a lot of diverse groups to analyze your results and possibly contribute, challenge it, and also being able to critique it if possible. And this here has to work together, considering the following things. One is you need to come up with a new theory or idea, and that is one of the outcomes that are going to be coming up when you have such results presented. That is really fantastic. However, you have a situation where it can be debunked or modified based on the existing theories that are out there, and that is where you have so many cool tweaks into how gravity has changed over time, and it's still changing over time in terms of perspective, going from just an apple falling down to now two bodies interacting with each other with a sense of a force of attraction, to now looking at general relativity in the sense that you're considering now space and time, and now you're looking into whether space and time is quantum or not. All these are really ongoing things that are really modified or changing, not really, no, getting into the last point, which is competing with other, or debunking it completely. And then the last one is sometimes you have your theory competing with other teams, to see whether you have, you'll come up with the first, or you're the first to come up with a groundbreaking experiment. And so this year, I really like one of the things that was going on in not only the quantum field but also other fields of study. Which technique is the best technique? Or if to, like for example, during the pandemic, we had Moderna coming in with their own vaccine experimental RNA techniques, to that of Pfizer, and all those who were the first people to come out to give results that were more, I would say, perfect efficacy, let's put it that way. And so it's just interesting to see how that is applicable currently and how the future is going to look like down the road. So overall, I hope you found this really informative and how you can present methods of experiment or variables that influences measurements in science to your students. I hope you found this really informative. Go down to the comment section and let me know your thoughts about other ways that you introduce measurements to your classroom that makes them to feel that this is really a big deal and not something that we do just to kill time and make them feel that you're not wasting their precious time doing other things. All the same, go down in the comment section and let me know your thought about this. By that way, I could talk to you soon. Stay smart as always and believe in yourselves.